What's up, everyone? DJ Anubis here with you on the Military Radio podcast with another Kaiju Spotlight, this time with my co-host and good friend Ulven from the Silver Screen Savants. Thank you for joining me, sir, to do another Kaiju Spotlight. Much appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Yes, so yeah, we're here to discuss King Kong, of course. So as always, we'll kind of just get an idea when you first saw it. I know you haven't quite seen every film with Kong in it, but what was your first impressions when you first saw him, and which film was it?
I started off with the original.
1933?
I started off with the 1933. Happy anniversary this week, in fact, to King Kong. If I'm not mistaken, he's 90s, in his 80s or 90s. I just turned it the other day.
Yeah.
Birth date, or whatever they want to call it. I was about 5 or 6, maybe 7, around that age. I saw it on VHS, like how I had said before, like how I talked about how I had seen Mothra versus Godzilla and all that stuff. It's kind of like that story in that sense for King Kong, because he had the tape, he had the stuff. On it was you had V8 on the VHS stuff. You had the scenes I can remember are the island natives was on it. It had Anne gets captured at night. Anne gets sacrificed. Kong saves her. And also Kong fights the monsters on the island. And then I think it also had in New York, back when they're in New York, and they have Kong in the theater on display for the world to see. And then also I remember seeing the airplane scene also with but that was my first kind of take on King Kong, and I thought it was a really cool character and stuff.
Yeah. His origins basically started in 1933 with the RKO Radio Pictures King Kong, sort of the American Western version of Toho's Godzilla. Was like the one that they created for America. And, he has quite a few films that he's appeared in since then. Some, of course, with Mecha Kong that we watched, King Kong Escapes, stuff like that. My first experience, it had to be more or less with 76, which we'll get into a little bit later. But I do remember finally watching the original Kong and liking it and enjoying like the animation, stop motion animation that was involved there. And of course, getting to know the roots of where King Kong came from. In fact, I had only really seen up until recently the main King Kong film. So like, I still have not seen King Kong Lives. I did see Escapes recently, but most of the ones I've seen have always been the solo Kong reincarnations of the original.
I can tell you the ones I haven't seen is King Kong Lives, the 76, the one with Linda Miller. I have not seen. I think that's all, because I've seen Skull Island, I've seen the original, and I saw the Peter Jackson 2005 one also.
Yeah. So in your opinion, what do you feel is like the most compelling aspect of King Kong? Like, what is it about him that you find fascinating?
What I find fascinating about him is his love for Anne. It's like this, it's like Beauty and the Beast, but from a gigantic ape's point of view, it's like, oh, it's love. Maybe he wants to, it's like saying he's Anne's protector in a sense of over evil and stuff. And I was going to add on, I have seen some of the animated stuff with Kong before also. Like, I have seen Kong, the animated series, and it was interesting at the time because this character has, like, a device on his head, and it's like a communicator and stuff, and he can tap into Kong, like, work with him and stuff. It's really cool. I recommend checking it out if you have not, because it's just another way they did Kong as a cartoon, and it was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously you mentioned how his has a relationship with Anne, and so Kong has always had this thing with human females. So what do you believe is the interpretation of that relationship? Do you think is it just a Beauty and the Beast thing? Do you think down underneath it's supposed to be something more serious? Reason why I bring it up is, and it's never been really explored, but I remember when 76 came out, like, obviously I love the poster work, especially even the Japanese version. I always loved this the most about this film, but the scene with Jessica Lange, like, one of the biggest criticisms was it was always a little bit too sexual. Like, it was really something that some critics found to be a turnoff, and felt like, unlike the original, like it was just trying to push a narrative that really shouldn't have been pushed there. Even though I do kind of see some of what they're talking about, I don't really think it was a sexual thing, but I can't really explain myself like why it is Kong has a fascination with human females. Like, even in the original, it seems like it was more about human sacrifice, because Kong didn't mind eating people back then. But then
Yeah.
as it's gone on, he really hasn't done that aspect. It's just something entirely different. So how do you look at the interpretation of that relationship?
I look at how you said it. Like, it's kind of like how you put it, like Kong, it's Beauty and the Beast in a sense, and it's how Kong, how he relates, how he acts, and I think that was something Toho did with Kong. Why, at the time, or whoever was the producer, whoever had the rights to Kong that made the Kong movies, to do, I think it's something they chose to do with. You mentioned how he used to eat people. You're right that we haven't seen it since probably the original
Yeah.
nowadays. So it does make the question: is it something the developers chose? Is it something the producers, directors, chose, or is it, is it was it something to be like Godzilla? Because you don't see Godzilla doing that ever much.
Right.
But to get back to Anne and Kong, what'd you say? You said their relationship kind of like thing or something like that.
Yeah. So, like, what would you feel is the interpretation? Do you think it's
Uh,
just fascination? Do you think it's
mm-hmm.
some sort of weird sexual prowess? Like, obviously, Kong goes to great lengths to defend Anne in the movies. So it's like, does he feel
Yeah.
like does it feel like it's his girlfriend despite being a little small creature? Like, how do we look at this?
Uh-huh.
And it's really kind of a hard thing to kind of justify, because I've never really truly understood exactly what the dynamic is supposed to be, because obviously, like we said from the first film, the sacrifices were there to appease the tribe and appease Kong. So they would give away these virgins or these girls, and we did see him eat people back then. So
I was gonna
what?
say.
So exactly what changed when Anne showed up? We got the blonde, pretty girl, the non-native. So is that
Mhm.
something that changed Kong's perception of what the sacrifice meant? So yeah, I'm just trying to get an idea where you're at with that.
Yeah, I'm kind of like you. I don't understand the why it was like that. I'm assuming it's Beauty and the Beast, or it's
And that's a
Beauty.
good point, because again, when Kong finally dies in those films, they're saying, oh, it wasn't the planes or the bullets that killed Kong. It says it was beauty that killed Kong. Like that was the reasoning behind it. So certainly it's like Kong's fascination with Anne was the downfall as well. You know, he was always a protector. When the cameras are going off and he gets out of his locks and chains, it's because he feels like Anne is being attacked. And so he's protecting her.
Yeah.
So obviously, you haven't seen the '76 version. I have, and right now I can say that Jessica Lange's portrayal of Anne is my favorite, even though she's playing Dwan in that. She's my favorite female lead from the movies. But you've seen the other two, so out of those two, like which one is your favorite?
Oh, you put me on the spot. But I have, yeah. I was going to correct myself and say I have seen the MonsterVerse movies, also all those, as well with Kong. But to me, I think Peter Jackson's just hit a nail on the head when doing Anne and how it should be done, because I feel like we get with that one. I feel like we got more we fleshed out Anne a little bit more, if you know what I mean, like her who she is more. And I mean, don't get me wrong, the original has it as well. So it's a tie between those two for me, of which.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I do like is obviously as time goes on, and Jackson's a great storyteller. We saw him with the Lord of the Rings stuff and all that, but he also brought a whole new dynamic to Anne's character as well. Like it was Naomi Watts. Was she playing Anne in that as well?
I'll have to look that up.
I'll look it up. I can't remember if hers was considered Anne in that remake or not. I'm assuming yes, but then again, I could be wrong. So people are like, "You guys don't have your shit together." But let's see, cast. Yeah, she is playing Andara. Okay, so it is the same one. Jessica Lange is the one that's not playing the same character. So I do like that Jackson gave her more freedom to do a little bit more with the character. Like, you know, there is I like it sticks in my mind the one moment where she's already been captured by Kong, and in order to try to communicate with him in some way, in order, because she is scared of him, she starts dancing, and Kong's like, you know, laughing and like an ape would. He's, you know, he's all happy that she's dancing around like a joker with him, so he's having fun with that. So that dynamic of how that works between how they communicate is pretty cool.
I was gonna add on to what I said about the Kong and Anne, like from the first two movies. I think also you got a lot more backstory when you had Skull Island with Kong also, because you kind of see his history and you see his relationship and stuff with the other Titans, because, you know, there are skeletons on the wall, and I think it ties together. And you see his ferocity, how feral he can be when he doesn't have a lover or a relationship kind of role.
Yeah, and they kind of dropped the whole, like, you know, female beauty in distress
That's
from the MonsterVerse. You have the little girl, of course, who communicates with him, but it's not like it's not just one thing to protect her. Like, it's just, you know, Kong is like a Earth defender. He's now protecting everybody, at least on Skull Island, unless you attack his ass. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's a different approach to his character in the MonsterVerse than it is in the other films.
I could see something like that happening in this the one that's coming out in the next couple years. That relationship becoming like that, but that's just me.
Hey, maybe, yeah, and you know, again, like I think Kevin Lambert said this too, is that Monarch, since that's more or less American product, that's, you know, it's going to be probably centered around Kong more than Godzilla. So whether or not we get another Godzilla film outside the one that's coming up, you know, it might be more Kong centered going forward, unless they decide to do more Godzilla films, but which I hope they do. But for the time being, that's kind of all we have to go with is one more film and then the Monarch series. So What are some of your favorite and iconic moments from his movies that you've seen? Like, what do you like about them and what he does? Like, I know you brought up fighting some of the dinosaurs and the monsters and stuff. So, what are some of your favorite iconic scenes with him?
So there's also a one not in King Kong but in Son of Kong, which is in the same universe. To my understanding, it's we don't see what I would like to know is what gender is Kong. They have never told us. Is he male? Is he female? Nobody has ever clarified. Nobody has told us this. Also, that would be something I would like to know. It's like
Yeah.
Godzilla. Is he male? Is he female? It's the same thing. Um, but I do like the scene and they did this in the Peter Jackson in the original. I don't know if they did it in the 1976, but the scene where he uses the log to like shake off. He's got the log grabbed and he's like up
Yeah.
and down. That was
Getting
pretty
all the
cool.
humans off so they can't follow him. Yeah.
And then this the clip that you played in the intro, I also like the V-Rex fight
Yeah.
against Kong and V-Rex. I don't know if it was real done in the original, but I mean the Peter Jackson just did it so well done. The
Yeah. It's
Empire.
one thing about that scene, too, is like, again, you see after he's done, like, basically destroying the jaw of the T-Rex, he's kind of clapping it together like, yeah, why aren't you snapping anymore? He doesn't understand it. He's like literally killed the fucking thing, destroyed it. Which is something that somewhat happens in 76 with the snake. It's kind of done in a similar way. Uh, and I do like that, like, especially in the Jackson remake, he focused a lot more also on the details of some of the smaller creatures in the world that they're in. So like while 33 kind of just has like some of the bigger monsters, I like the thing I like about 2005 is that even when she's avoiding the bigger creatures, we have like larger insects. And, that's terrifying within its own. And then those guys that fall in that pit after Kong shakes them off, they're down there with all these other insect looking things, and it's like really terrifying. I think I'd rather take my chances with Kong. you know.
To add on the 2000, I think it was 2005 when it came out, but there was a video game for the Peter Jackson King Kong movies, and it did a really well job of interpreting what Jack and the other survivors had to go through. You kind of get their perspective as well as the perspective of Kong and stuff, because it's really, there's one ending where Kong survives and he's on the island in the end, and then there is an ending like the movie ending.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool that way also, that you can tell that story and you can display it and you can give somebody that's never seen the movie that perspective of it.
Yeah. Now, obviously one of the biggest moments in King Kong's history is when he was going up against Godzilla. And anyone who's ever followed me about my feelings on the 63 version versus the 2021 would know that I really hate the 63 version, mainly because I don't really believe in the way they gave Kong power. So we're talking like the electrical charge versus the radiator hammer from 2021. So, how did you feel about the contrast of both films? Like, how do you feel about it all?
I have to say that you said 2021 is when we got.
That was the first Godzilla and Kong, yeah.
Yeah, I like that one a lot more than the 53, 63, whatever you
63, yeah.
63, because it gave us a whole new dynamic of what Kong is. They gave him a weapon in the 2021 movie as well. And I'm like,
Well, I think that's why it works. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Whereas it might be 62. I say 63, but it's somewhere in that range. But in the first version, it's just basically he gets hit by lightning, and all of a sudden he's got these extra powers to be able to compete with Godzilla, and it just isn't very believable for me on that level. But when 2021 came around, we got like really the more realistic how they would actually be as fighters, and but in order to allow Kong to compete with Godzilla, they gave him the axe. It can be radiated, and so that gives him a fighting chance. But they still, I think, in the end, got it right where Godzilla really is the more powerful of the two. Now, of course, we know how the film ends, where they have to team up to defeat Mechagodzilla, which is fine. That makes it work very well since they're both Earth defenders. And, they shouldn't really be trying to kill each other. They're just territorial.
And they basically killed one of these species in the original King Kong in the remake. And I don't know if the 76 had that kind of creature in it or not. But
no, and I think that's probably one of the more disappointing aspects of 76. It didn't really spend a lot of time on the extra creatures, so you didn't see too many of those. They were just doing a lot of different things. It's still a really fun movie, but I kind of hated the fact they didn't have more creatures to fight in that one than they did the other films. Like 2005 did a really good job with that.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I do like that. When they do 2021, they just got it more accurate to how that fight would actually play out. And that's just my feelings. I know some people still really love the 62 version or 63, whatever one we call it. But I'm just more happy with the 2021 approach to it.
I'm the same way. I like how it's set up. I like how it's done. It gave us and introduced us to a whole new world and Hollow Earth also in that one.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things that I always kind of hated about the solo Kong films is that he always ends up dying at the end. Like, it's always a bummer because it's really not his fault that he's being taken away from his home, put on display, and then has to fight for survival. And even though he's still trying to protect this young human woman, if a company like Legendary or somebody tried to go back to that route, even if it's outside the MonsterVerse, would you want them to stay true to the original layout of King Kong, or would you want them maybe to change the ending a little bit? Because the one thing I do like about the MonsterVerse is that they've given Kong longevity. He doesn't have to die. He can keep surviving the films and keep being, a longer aspect to the series itself. So how do you feel about, like, if they decide to do a solo film again, would you like to see them change up the ending somehow?
I'm going to point it this way. I don't want King Kong. I want Son of Kong. That has never been done, remade. So this is direct sequel, by the way, to the original King Kong. And I would like for them to do that instead of King Kong, because I feel like we've done way too many King Kong remakes. That's just me, because every couple years it feels like there's a new King Kong movie. Because I would be fine for a solo King Kong, but if it's done right, if it's the right direction, I don't know if I would want them to do the same story of him dying in the end, though. But if I would want to see what they could do if he lives, they could spin it into Son of Kong. Like Kong has a child, and then we go into this generation, with that character for a while. See where that goes. I don't know if you watched Son of Kong or you've seen it, but in the ending, Junior goes out a hero because he saves Anne's life. And it ties Anne and what's the character's name? The Jack Black's character. And
okay, gotcha. The director.
Yeah, Carl. So
do they ever explain how Son of Kong came about? Because we know Kong dies. So did they
We
explain how he came to be?
the best way to say it is they say he's like abandoned in a sense style.
Okay.
So you got to watch it because I would say I would put it in the category of King Kong itself. It's that good of a movie. Is it a solid movie? No, because you got they had movies back then that were after sequels that were not great.
Hmm.
And I mean, I I would say it's like an 8 out of 10. The Son of Kong to watch, but it's worth it. I mean, checking it out. But yeah, I would like to see him do the Son of Kong kind of style route.
Yeah, I think the only reason why they probably wouldn't do that one, just wouldn't be a big draw. That's why we're probably not going to get like solo Rodan or Mothra films. It's just not enough people that were familiar with the creatures. And if you say King Kong, people know that film like back to front. But if you say Son of Kong, they're like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Why not just King Kong? Why do we want Son of Kong? Nobody wants that. We want
Mm-hmm.
King Kong. So that's pretty much how that probably rolls out half the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, in your opinion, what do you think is Kong's legacy, and what important lessons do you think we are meant to learn from him as a kaiju?
Well, his legacy is tremendous. He he deserves to be on the Hollywood Walk of Fame like Godzilla. I know there was a petition, and I don't know if it's still going around or not, but I remember I signed it for King Kong to be on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I would love to see that. That character is probably as cool as Godzilla in a sense. They haven't had as many movies as each other, but the character is just. And as far as his legacy and what lessons we can learn, uh, his we can learn a lot from this character because you can learn how to do monster movies that are giant ape. Like if you want, and new creatures can learn, new directors, creatures, whatever, can learn from this movie as well how to film, how to direct, how to write, how to act from these movies because the legacy is endless. I think for Kong though, because I think Hollywood, they make movies all the time. They make remakes, so I hate to say it, but it might be a remake of this King Kong, but who knows? Um, but the lessons, I it's really hard to say what lessons to put out about Kong, but he leaves a lasting legacy behind.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I think he does deserve a Walk of Fame. And I'm surprised that he hasn't because obviously Godzilla's there. And I saw like a note that said, well, usually the Walk of Fame is saved for those that are real people and not fictional creatures. But then Godzilla has his Walk of Fame. So, that's kind of inconsistent. And really, King Kong, if you think Godzilla, the next one up is King Kong. That's really there is no second best. King Kong comes up
Unless
right up there
somebody's
with
gonna say Ghidorah or somebody like that.
Yeah, but even then, like most people, if you walk to your average Joe, they're not going to know who Ghidorah is, but they will know who King Kong is. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just feel like it's kind of a ripoff, especially in America where the Hollywood Walk of Fame exists. Like, in
Yeah.
Japan, you would expect Godzilla's king of everything. And in America, you'd expect Kong to be king of everything.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the lessons, like I think that one thing I can really appreciate about King Kong, despite making fun of him all the time, is that through his movies and just the character itself is you learn about humanity a lot of times and just how we treat creatures in general. And Godzilla's lessons about Tokyo and the bombings and stuff is that's sort of that lesson there with that. But King Kong, it's a bit approached a lot differently about just really kind of treating everyone and everything with respect. It's not like again, his story is sort of like Rodan in some ways, where it's just a very sad ending to
Mm-hmm.
what's going on. But it's worse for Kong because he's being exploited,
Mm-hmm.
for fame and money and stuff. So, and really, a lot of times you just kind of look at Kong and he's really misunderstood about how he wants to interact with the human race. So even in Skull Island, he's kind of just minds his own business, man. And then those army guys come in and start dropping bombs all over the place, and he's pissed off, you know. So it's a testament to the character of Kong. Even when you watch Empire, how he just longs for family. That's all he wants is just a belonging to something and to his own kind. So it's really kind of cool how they've adjusted this creature's persona. Again,
Sorry,
go
cut you
ahead.
off. What I was gonna also add on is before when we talked about our Son of Kong review, one of my friends had told me that Peter Jackson's plan was to do a Son of Kong movie after King Kong, the remake.
Well, Peter, it's been almost 20 years. I think we need it if you're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do love the overall dynamic of King Kong.
Mm-hmm.
He's different than most of the kaiju we get in terms of like how he interacts with humanity, and I think his legacy is very strong. He'll always be there. That's why I think that even if they do another King Kong, it'll probably do well. Just to make sure, as long as it's been well made. But people will flock to it because it has that name that everybody knows, King Kong. So,
Mm-hmm.
all right. Well, what do you have coming up for your channel, if anything? Let people know what they should be looking forward to.
I knew you were going to say something like that. We have Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster review coming up on Tokusatsu Action Land on Thursday night live on YouTube. I'm looking forward to that episode. I mean, that was my first. I've seen Ghidorah through God, Godzilla King of the Monsters, the remake, the 2000 whatever. I can't think of the year.
Mhm.
And then also I had seen him or her through Final Wars also because I had seen that movie before. I haven't seen it in forever, so. But there's that coming out. May 15th, we have our anniversary show, Kaiju Bash. We're doing I wanted to do like a versus kind of style show, like how you have on your birth date coming up.
Mhm.
So I wanted to do the Kaiju of Ultraman on one side, and then on the other side, we're going to do, I'm going to use a generator thing, a name thing, to pair each one against each other. But we're going to do like the Godzilla Kaiju and stuff and Gamera on one side because Ultraman has so many that it's way too unfair if you just plug Gamera if you just do Ultraman but by himself because he has like thousands of monsters and stuff. So that's why I say it that way.
Yeah.
Also, when we hit 100 subs on Tokusatsu Action Land, we are doing a giveaway with the DBZ lanyards. One of them. And we also tomorrow have the Silver Screen Savants with 1993's Three Musketeers. But other than that, I don't think there's anything coming up. So yeah, that's all I know.
Okay. Yeah. So for me, obviously, Silver Screen Savants for tomorrow, Friday, I will be getting together with Kevin Lambert and a few guys for Into the Darkness as we cover the Basket Case franchise. Then Saturday we'll have another Silver Screen Savants, but I have not made my pick yet. Or yes, I did. It's going to be Action Jackson, the Carl Weathers film. So we'll be watching that and
on
reviewing
Friday,
that.
probably.
Yeah. So that's pretty much all I got because I'm going to be doing a lot of Diablo 4 in this week, testing the new beta for Season 8, just kind of see what they got in store for us. Then I'll start setting up more Kaiju spotlights and other shows and stuff like that. We will be doing a Ghouls of Midnight with Tony. I can't remember what pick he made, but we got that for Wednesday.
Something Night of the Comet.
No, he changed it to something else, and I have to get back with him to figure out what the fuck it was. But I'm looking forward to it. I don't think I've ever seen it. But either way, as you mentioned, I do have a Versus that's coming up on the 21st, a few days before my birthday. Going to have a nice little panel of people, including Ulven here, to do Tales of Halloween from 2015 with Trick or Treat from 2007. So 2 anthologies that we're going to pit against one another and decide which one we like the most and vote. And then, of course, the 22nd, 2 things going on. One is I will be joining Sci-Fi Century for his Godzilla versus Gigan review live stream. And then, of course, Mr. Ulven and I will get together later with, I believe, Geek to do The Fog. So
also, I was going to point out, this is a mold of the original King Kong from 33. And they have them in the shops in New York where you can actually get that figure. So
very cool. Well, thank you for joining me, sir. I appreciate it as always.
Yeah.
And for the rest of you, please go and like and subscribe to Ulven's channel. He also has another channel called Tokusatsu Action Land. So be sure to check that out and like and subscribe to that. Like and subscribe to this channel. And please give us your thoughts on King Kong. How do you feel about the kaiju himself? Did you think we missed anything? Did you think that we made some good points? Let us know. We'd like to hear some feedback. And we'll see you next time on the Military Radio Podcast.
You see before you die. Find the